Today, I want to talk to you about something that's very important to me and my career, and it's conventions and book signings and events and some things that I and we, my staff, my friends, fellow creators, want to see more of at events. So stay tuned and learn how to make your event rock. Hey there, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time here. It's great to meet ya. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books, as well as a freelance editor and the author of over 40 novel-length works, including The Black Knight Chronicles, Bubba the Monster Hunter, Quincy Harker Demon Hunter, and a pile of other stuff. You can find a link in the description, or, I don't know, Google me. You're smart people. Today, I want to talk to you about conventions and some things that I think people can work on and improve to make conventions better for everybody. And we're going to use the big term convention. And frankly, I mean, when I say convention, I'm talking about anything from a little one-day Comic-Con to great big San Diego Comic-Con, Dragon Con, big massive shows. These are some things that most events can work on in one way or another to make the experience better for vendors, for guests, and for attendees. And really, at the end of the day, it needs to be good for all of those people, or you're not going to be having an event for very long. We've seen so many examples lately of events that didn't quite live up to expectation, let's say. Events that were overcrowded, events that maybe didn't disclose that you had to buy a book to get a book signed, events that didn't give out the level of swag that they promised, events that just really had a ball pit in the middle of a big ass convention center instead of actually having a con. But most of the events that I attend are fairly well run, if not exceptionally well run. But there's always room for improvement. That's why at the end of most conventions, you get a survey saying, hey, how did we do? And you should fill out that survey because the convention staff and the con committees and the ownership, they really do read them. Now, sometimes, and I've been in the room, sometimes we read them and say, well, that's stupid. Ignore that. Because sometimes people put on those surveys, I wish that you would pave this section of the back property. Well, I don't own the hotel, so the convention can't do anything about that. Or the parking situation here sucks. Well, yes, but your event is taking place in a major metropolitan city and you have to pay for parking in big cities. I'm sorry, that's usually the deal. But a lot of times those suggestions are really valid. Like, hey, can you make the food trucks out front stay another couple of hours next year? I didn't get a chance to eat any lunch. Yes, we can talk to the food trucks and get them to stay longer. Hey, maybe don't program your film festival to coincide with a rock concert in the room next door. Hey, you're right. We shouldn't do that. We'll fix that in the schedule. But here's a few things that I and my team have observed recently that conventions can work on and do better. So this first one, for the record, I didn't write this whole list, and I think the first one might be on me. Because someone put on the list shorter opening ceremonies with a positive tone. And I emceed the opening ceremonies at Con Carolinas this year, and I ran too long. Way too long. I had an idea to focus more on our guests of honor and make sure that they had a time to let the audience get to know them a little before the convention started. And I overdid it, and we went way, way too long. So that's something that I, as the MC of these opening ceremonies, will absolutely work on. But realistically, your opening ceremonies for most conventions should be no more than 30 to 45 minutes. You want to introduce your safety staff. You want to go over any big announcements. I like to open with a song from one of our musical guests and introduce our guests of honor, and maybe make sure that you have an award or two to present at opening ceremonies. Get everybody hyped, get everybody pumped, and make sure that everybody is having a good time to kick off the weekend. When you run long, like I did, it doesn't start the weekend off on the note that you really want it to. So keep your opening ceremonies tight and make sure that it stays upbeat and positive throughout. Smaller panelist lists. Yes, please. 4 to 5 plus a moderator is really as much as most panels can handle. You've got an hour at best in this room on this topic. So if you've got 5 people and a moderator, they each might get 10 minutes to talk, maybe. So that means that they're going to spend a couple of minutes introducing themselves in the beginning. You're going to spend a minute a person saying where they're going to be at the end. And then they've got 6 or 7 minutes left to actually discuss the topic at hand. And that's if you keep it moving and if you don't have anybody that's a microphone hog, which you probably do. And look, we all love the sound of our own voice. I have a friggin' YouTube channel where I sit and talk into the camera on my phone. Obviously, I love the sound of my own voice. But when you're on a panel with 4 or 5 other people, that's not the time to monopolize, and it's not the time to get yourself over, as people who are actually in the wrestling business would say. It's the time to answer the question and be supportive of your fellow panelists and be polite to your fellow panelists. And if you have 10 people on a panel, and yeah, I've been on panels with 10 or 12 other human beings, it's just too much. Nobody gets to say anything, and you maybe get through 2 questions on the topic before your time is up. Nobody likes that. It doesn't allow anyone to dive deep into the topics. It's why when we produce Saga, the genre fiction writing conference that Falstaff Books produces, it's why they're solo presentations that are 90 minutes long, because they're master classes and I really want to teach people. So if you are building a convention, limit the people sitting at the front of the room to 5, maybe 6 at the most, and that does include your moderator. Anything more than that, and you're not going to, and somebody's not going to ever speak. So you got to make sure that you're taking care of all of your people, because that then serves the attendees better. Hey, buddy. Gandalf, you want to come say hello to people? Now, in addition to, yes, I know, you're pissy. In addition to making sure you keep the right number of people on the panel, you also have to make sure that your moderators are well trained and your moderators are strong enough personalities to corral not just your guests, but also your audience. Most panels are not designed as group discussions. So if you're sitting in the audience, unless it's time to ask questions, shut the hell up. Now, some panels will be framed as audience discussions. If that's the way the panel is built, go for it. Chime in. Most of them, probably 9 out of 10 of them, will not be like this. Panel discussions are designed for the people in the front of the room to answer questions from the moderator and then some questions from the audience at the end. If you feel the need to begin your question, well, this is really not a question, it's more of a comment, sit the hell down and shut the hell up. Because if you were the subject matter expert and a guest at the convention, then you likely would have been placed on that panel. And sometimes you will have panels that you think you're a subject matter expert on and you were not selected for. I'm sorry. Speaking for con runners everywhere, I'm sorry. We don't know everyone's expertise. We don't know everyone's background. And you also don't know everyone's background. So it's entirely possible that you aren't as qualified to be on the panel as you think you are. For example, I have a degree in acting. I spent 30 years working in and around theater in almost every role imaginable. I was primarily a lighting designer, a director, an actor, and a producer. Over the course of the time I did theater, I ran box office, I built sets, I designed sound, I designed costumes. I did everything except choreography and musical direction. I also was the producing artistic director for a Shakespeare-focused company for 2 years. And I sat on a panel at Con Carolinas once about Shakespeare and was barely in the top 3 of the experts on Shakespeare on the panel. In some panels, I would have been by far the greatest expert, but I was actually sitting there with people with PhDs in theater and literature and one of the foremost experts on Shakespeare in the world. So if I was even in third place, it was a distant third. And really it's maybe 50-50 whether I was even third. So understand that just because you weren't selected to be on a panel doesn't mean you're a bigger expert than the people in the front of the room. They might actually know a hell of a lot more than you think they do. Yes, that's Gandalf hitting the camera. And they may know more than you think they do, and they may know more than you do. But even if you do know more than the people in the front of the room, that's still not your time. You aren't on the panel. Shut the hell up until it comes time to take questions from the audience and then ask a brief and relevant question. Don't, oh, well, this is really more a comment. No, sit down. I have moderated panels where I've said, okay, well, if it's just a comment, save it for later and talk to one of us after the panel. And then I've moved on. And you need a strong moderator to do this. I talk to a lot of con runners and I talk to a lot of moderators, and most of us have a list of our best moderators and our moderators that are most capable of handling difficult panelists. And you know who you are. Sometimes I'm one of you. We love the sound of our own voice, and sometimes we can run long. So we need a strong moderator to handle that. And that means that you, as a con runner, need to book strong moderators, and you, as a convention panelist and guest, need to pay attention to the moderator. We need more diversity on the convention circuit. I work primarily in the southeastern United States, because yes, every area has a southeast. And I have seen far too many times panels on writing diverse characters, panels on writing the other, where everybody on the panel fucking looks like me. Don't do that. It's insulting to the topic, it's insulting to the audience, and it's insulting to the panelists. If you only have white people at your convention, then you have a problem with your convention. Let me lay this out to you in dollar and cents terms that everybody can understand. As a con runner, I want everybody's money. That means I want people of all shapes, sizes, colors, orientations, and lifestyle choices to come to my convention. I want black people, I want brown people, I want gay people, I want straight people, I want furries, I want kinks, I want goths, I want emos, I want nerds, I want geeks. I want everybody. The way to get diverse attendees as a con runner is to make sure you have a diverse leadership in the convention and that you have diverse guests from the top down. So if your con-com is all people that look like this and all your guests are people that look like this, why would people who don't look like this feel like your convention is a welcoming place? I've been to Multiverse, a convention in Atlanta, every year since its founding, and I will be back this year in October. It is one of the loveliest and most diverse conventions I've found in the Southeast. It has all types of people, all shapes, sizes, creeds, colors, everything you can imagine. They made diversity a core value of the convention from the jump, and they have exercised that with every decision they've made. It's an incredibly welcoming, incredibly diverse group of attendees and guests and leadership. And more conventions need to take a look at that. If you are telling me that you cannot find any non-white, non-straight, non-male guests to sit at the top of the bill, I'm telling you right now, you're not looking hard enough and you are being either lazy or racist. Yeah, I said it. My whole face, I said it. You know how I know this? Because I book guests of honor for conventions. So I try to book people that don't look like me. There's enough guests of honor that are middle-aged straight white guys. We're not really that interesting. So you have to mix it up. And the way to mix up your guest list is to book guests of honor who are from marginalized communities, from underrepresented communities, because that will get you more guest applications from more diverse guests. And when you have more diverse guests, you get more diverse attendees. And it doesn't scare the white people off. It just adds to your event and draws more and more people feel welcome, and more people feel like it's an awesome weekend, and you, as the convention, make more money. And you're either profitable if you're a for-profit organization, or you're sustainable if you're a not-for-profit. The idea of go woke, go broke is egregiously stupid to start with and demonstrably false by all measurable metrics. But in the convention world, it's just old thinking. And for God's sake, if you're inviting the same 10 guests of honor that are at every convention your size, and you're wondering why your attendance is dwindling year after year, maybe look in the mirror. Wake up. It is the year of our cat 2026, and it's a very different world than the one when you started running conventions. Probably. Maybe this is your first year running conventions and I don't know nothing. But anyway, we as guests want more diverse slates of guests, because we as guests want more diverse attendees, because we want more attendees. So diversify your convention leadership, then diversify your guests of honor. That will in turn diversify your guest list, which will in turn diversify your attendee list. And if you're telling me, especially in the writing field, that you can't find writers of color who are qualified to be guests of honor, then you are either ignorant, uninformed, or again, racist. And I'm going to lean towards the third. Because if you're telling me you've never heard of Tananarive Due, or Sylvia Moreno Garcia, or Chuck Tingle, or any of the dozens of LGBTQ plus or BIPOC creators that are blowing stuff off the shelf, getting things made into movies, topping bestseller lists, if you don't think you can find these people, then maybe crack open a book that was written in this century. Next. You got to advertise your stuff, y'all. As guests, we want attendees. And to get attendees have to know that your event is taking place. And this isn't going to happen with one Facebook post a week. You need to constantly bombard social media with talk of your event for months leading up to the event. At least 6 months leading up. You need a guest announcement for every guest, and you need to put it across multiple social media platforms, and you need to make sure that the image looks good on all social media platforms. You are running a business, and if businesses do not grow, they are dying. You must grow. You cannot stay the same size forever and ever and continue to be successful. I know some of you are going to come in the comments and say, this and this and this, have done this and this and this for 30 years. And what are you going to do when those 400 people are all dead? Because if you're not advertising, you're not reaching people who don't already know about you. One of the things we've been able to do the last few years at Con Carolinas, as they've built more apartments near our convention hotel, is the local, I don't know, business guild, whatever you want to call it, not the Chamber of Commerce for the city, but like the little regional Chamber of Commerce for that neighborhood, has been putting signs up all over the area advertising our convention for the couple of weeks leading up. That gives us the opportunity to put eyeballs on the product and get them to wander into the door. That's what you want. You got to get more eyeballs on your stuff. You've got to market your event, or you won't have an event. Now, some of you may know my feelings on generative AI. It has no place at any convention I'm going to be a part of. So that means that you as a con runner have to have a very clear anti-AI stance. That means that it needs to say everywhere that people might be applying for any aspect of your convention, no generative AI is allowed in our dealer room, in our art show, in our author's alley. And if you use generative AI in the creation of your works, you will likely not be considered as a guest. Thank you, the management. AI is stealing from me. It is stealing from narrators. It is stealing from cover artists. And if your convention doesn't take a stand against it, you are inherently standing for it. And a lot of us will see you and will decide to spend our time and lend our reputations to another event. Because when we sign up for your convention, we are lending our name to your event. For some of us, some folks who are just starting out, who have no footprint, that's not relevant. For some of us, that's something we pay very close attention to. And even if you don't have a following yet, you should be paying close attention to that now. Because you don't want to be associated with something 10 years from now when you're a massive success, because you weren't paying attention when you were not a big success. But your convention needs to say no to generative AI in all its forms, or a lot of us, guests, artists, will start saying no to your convention. And we need clear instructions on how to set up for vendors, clear instructions for load-in. We need this information at least a week, preferably 3 ahead of time. And we need a system to keep people at their tables until the show is over. You've probably seen this. You've been to a convention, it's the last day, you're walking through the dealer room, you get to one aisle, and everybody's packed up and gone. And the dealer room doesn't close for another 3 hours, but half the room's empty. This drives me crazy. It climbs up my ass so bad, I can breathe fire. Because when you, as a vendor, clear out early so that you can get home, an hour earlier, half an hour earlier, you're screwing the guy next to you. You're screwing both the people next to you. Because somebody looking down that aisle and seeing a bunch of empty tables and one poor schmo down there on the end, well, that poor schmo's never going to get anybody going down there, because why am I walking all that way for nothing? You, as a con runner, need to make it clear that your people who are vending at your event must stay until you pick the time. I'm not saying everybody's got to stick around till 6 o'clock, because I know sometimes you drive a long way to do a show, takes a long time to get home. Sometimes nothing happens in the last 2 hours. I have been running the Author's Alley for Con Carolinas for 10 years or so now. And it's very clear when I accept people into Author's Alley and I send them the letter saying, hey, congrats, you're going to be with us at Con Carolinas. Convention shuts down at 3 o'clock on Sunday. It says very clearly in your welcome letter that you are to be set up before opening ceremonies on Friday, which is 3 p.m. So you're to be set up by 3 p.m. on Friday, and you are to stay and have your table manned until at least 1 p.m. on Sunday. And if you do not do this, you may not be allowed to be part of Author's Alley next year. You might get a timeout, and I promise you I've done it. This does not mean that if you have a medical or family emergency, you can't leave. It does mean you got to tell somebody. But everybody who signs up for Con Carolina's Author's Alley knows when you got to be there. And I ain't playing, because it's one of the biggest conventions I do every year, sales-wise. So I want it to be a vibrant author's alley for the entire weekend. And it tends to be a vibrant author's alley for the entire weekend. Now, we're frequently the last people out because I end up going to closing ceremonies too. But everybody stays until 1 o'clock on Sunday. So that means that you don't walk into Author's Alley and see half the tables empty at 10 a.m. I did a con this year where when we showed up on Sunday, a quarter of the dealer's room was empty. And I went and talked to the convention staff and I said, hey, this is and it means that people aren't going to go to this corner of the room because there's 5 empty tables right there. And it really screws that person that's on the 6th table. Well, yeah, but people leave and can't do anything about it. I said, well, do anything about it, make them pay a deposit. I used to do this when I worked with a professional organization. Vendors paid a $100 deposit with their booth fee. Their booth fee wasn't refundable, but at the appointed time at which they could start striking, somebody walked the floor holding the deposit checks, and if their booth was still set up, they got their deposit check back. Most people, knowing that check's never going to be cashed, don't care. You show up, you do the whole show, you don't have to leave early, you get your $100 back. I think more conventions should institute this rule. Some conventions won't allow you to have a loading dock pass until you get a sign off from the convention that your booth is completely packed. And you can't start packing, and they won't even start looking at packed up booths until the show floor closes. This means there's usually not a block-and-a-half line to get into the loading dock when the show ends. I did sit in line trying to get out of a convention this year for an hour and a half. It sucked. Happens. So con runners need to make sure that their vendors understand that you paid for the whole weekend, you stay in for the whole weekend. Because otherwise you're screwing the people on the other side of you, and that's not good for anybody. Now, what do you want to see out of a convention? What will make you more interested in going to a convention, in spending your money at a convention, and what makes it more fun for you? What kind of things do you want to see and do? And you know how to tell me. Leave a note in the comments. And while you're down there, you should probably click the like and subscribe button. And if you want to see your name over here on the purple wall like these cool folks, you can become a member of the channel. And all of that really does help. And other than becoming a member, all of it's free. So leave us a comment, leave us a like, a subscribe. Still trying to get to 7,000 attendees. Yeah, I'm in con brain. Still trying to get to 7,000 subscribers. And really, who can say no to this face? Subscribe. Ring the bell to get notified. Bye.